Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Sarah. I am a hardware manufacturing engineer at Microsoft, and I create digital content on the side through channels such as YouTube, Instagram, my blog, TikTok, all that good stuff. And today is a special day because today I am 23. Woot woot. So I was journaling this morning, reflecting on my 23 years of life, and I've realized that I started compiling everything that I've learned. So I thought I'd share it here on this video. So you see me pulling up the journals because I'm referring to what I wrote earlier this morning. So today I am sharing 23 life lessons at 23, and I'm very excited for this because I love thinking about life. I love thinking about all of the things I've learned, so I have a lot to share with you all. Let's get started. I split the life lessons into 3 categories. There is self, there is career, and there is health. So let's start off with self. Life lesson number 1. This is quick, easy. You are your biggest project. Work on yourself, make yourself better, because when you focus on yourself and make yourself full, you will naturally want to help others and be able to provide more to the world as well. Life lesson number 2 is to be comfortable with silence. This can be useful in presentations, in negotiating, and just everyday talking. When you are presenting and you leave room to pause and leave time for silence, it really draws in the attention of your audience. So for example, if you want to say something really important and you want it to stick, leave room to pause. It also helps in negotiations because when you're negotiating in person, for example, if you're negotiating your salary and you leave time for silence, honestly, sometimes it makes them a little uncomfortable and just want to give you what you want. It also helps in everyday talking because instead of using filler words such as and like, you can just stay silent, and it helps you gather your thoughts better and also makes you sound more intellectual. Life lesson number 3 is to never tie your self-worth to external factors such as career achievements, your current level of fitness, your number of friends, things like that, because all those are bound to change and you cannot rely on how happy you feel to those things. I think there is a pressure of accumulating identity capital in our society, and we place who we are on what we do. When in reality, you are who you are already, and what you do is just how you explore your presence during this lifetime. When you stop focusing on going after all these different achievements to create who you are, then you are free to become yourself entirely, to speak what you want, to be who you want, and to not care about others' opinions. So adding on to that, life lesson number 4 is to communicate who you are. Once you are free from all these different achievements, start communicating who you are. So when you do explore these different venues of moving up in your career, bettering yourself, do it because that is what you want to experience in your life on this earth. And then communicate it through venues such as creating content on social media, writing blog posts, speaking about it, because when you start to speak about it is when you start to attract your people. I think I grew up feeling kind of lonely. I felt like I never found the people that had a similar mindset as me or similar goals. I didn't feel heard. And the truth is, it's not other people's responsibility to go out of their way to understand you. It is your responsibility to tell your story. So after I started creating YouTube videos, writing a blog post, being on Instagram, being more authentic to who I was, the best thing that has come out of all of that is people reaching out to me with similar goals, similar mindsets that I have connected to. Even people from my past that didn't know that we had this in common have reached out, and we've developed such true relationships from it. Another lesson I've learned is that you do not create habits out of nowhere and purely out of self-discipline. You create habits when you create an incentive. So for example, for me, I finally truly became a morning person. I didn't become a morning person until I created an incentive. I finally started waking up at 5 a.m. and I created an incentive of having all my coffee stuff ready so I can make my oat milk latte first thing in the morning. And that was enough to get me out of bed for a while until it started coming naturally. And on the note of habits, how you get rid of a bad habit is also not purely self-discipline, but by replacing the habit. So if you wanted to stop using your phone or going on social media first thing in the morning, if you were just to quit it cold turkey, you would wake up with nothing to do, so you would just reach for your phone again because that's what you do out of habit. But if you replace it with something that you enjoy, such as stretching, then it is much easier to change that bad habit. Another tip to help you get rid of those bad habits is before you do them, to say the bad habit out loud. That really helps you conceptualize the negative effects and reconnects you with your intentions to remove that bad habit. Life lesson number 6 is that if you believe you can do it, then you will be able to do it. And I know everyone says this, but I have a story to go with it. So before going to college, I was a competitive swimmer. I never went on a run in my entire life. Us swimmers, we stay in the water, we don't go on the land. We walk with our feet literally turned out like this and we look like ducks on land. But then when I joined college, I joined the triathlon team because I didn't want to keep swimming. I had a very weird love-hate relationship with swimming, and I figured the triathlon team was only 1/3 swimming. That's when I realized I had to learn how to run. And in the heat of the moment of everyone on the team absolutely loving running, I signed up for a marathon, mostly because I wanted to test and push my limits. And I realized looking back, I was able to do the marathon because I genuinely believed I could do it. I went on a couple of runs, given they were never more than 3 miles, and I felt like I could just gently jog like this for hours, and that it wouldn't be that bad. Was I crazy for thinking that? And do I know why I was thinking that? Absolutely not. But that's what I genuinely believed, that I could just jog for hours and it'd be chill. And so without even training more than 8 miles, I ran a marathon. I would absolutely not recommend signing up for a marathon without a proper training plan. But it also goes to show that if you genuinely believe that you can do it, you will be able to do it. Life lesson number 7 is to set your intentions every morning. When I set my intentions in the morning, I say out loud what kind of day I want to be having, what kind of things I need to do in order to make it a good day. And that really gets me in touch with my goals. I think goals can sometimes be meaningless. It can feel like checking off tasks off a list without any purpose, but setting your intentions for the day and of who you want to be, what you want to be, gives you more purpose and motivation. One more tip is to talk out loud, especially for people out there like me whose brain runs at like 100 miles per hour. Sometimes I'll literally be talking to someone and I will skip over words because my brain has moved past it. It can be really hard to understand me sometimes. So I've learned that whenever my brain is running really fast, and even when I'm alone, I will talk out loud to myself because it forces me to slow down and conceptualize my thoughts. It might sound a little crazy, especially if your neighbors are overhearing you talking to yourself, but it works to figure out what you're thinking, come up with new ideas, and I think it's good for my mental health overall. It slows things down a bit. Life lesson number 9 is that it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of priority. So if you feel like you don't have enough time to complete all the tasks you want, reflect back on your priority. I had to learn this in college when I was trying to build a product with a team of people. We were trying to create a startup out of it. As with every team project, there is always someone that is slacking behind, not carrying their weight. And it's not about getting mad at them because they're being lazy or inconsiderate. It's because they have different priorities. So they might have other things going on in their life, other classes, other obligations that are just taking priority over working on this project with you. And this has also helped me reevaluate my time management and what I want to get done. Next is growing up, I was never really super involved in politics. Politics was not huge in my family, and I never understood why people were so vocal about it until the past couple of years. I realized it's because activism is so empowering. People always told me to use my voice. I never understood why, but the reason is because it is so empowering to use your voice, to promote change for a better world with your own vocal cords, brain, writing, whatever form of communication it is. So yeah, if you need some motivation to get into activism, there it is that it is very empowering. You really do have the power to inflict change. Life lesson number 11 is love languages. Oh my gosh, this has completely changed the relationship game. To give a little background, there are 5 love languages: quality time, acts of service, physical touch, gifts, and words of affirmation. Little story time. I dated this guy this one time, and this was before I knew about love languages, and I used to get so upset about how he always wanted to spend more time together, which, okay, that sounds bad. That makes me sound like an evil person, but I felt like I had other obligations, and it's because his love language was probably quality time, and my love language is very much acts of service. With my current relationship, we also speak different love languages, but I think when you are aware of the other person's love language, you know how to express your love. Because how you express love is not necessarily how they understand love. And it's interesting because with my current relationship, we've talked a lot about love languages, and it's so fascinating how much is affected by your childhood. For example, for me, growing up, my parents showed love out of acts of service. I would wake up to grand breakfast being cooked for me, or they would come visit me in college and would help me clean my dishes and do my laundry kind of thing. So I grew up with expressing love through acts of service for people. Whereas other people, for example, if you grew up with a family that was very verbal about how much they love and value you, then that's how you're going to receive and intuitively give love through words of affirmation. So there's a whole book on it, which I still haven't read yet. I've read a lot about it online, but I need to read the book. It's on my reading list. There's also another book called Attached, which talks about attachment styles, and I've been recommended this book over and over again, so that is on my reading list as well. Building on relationships and communication, whenever there is a problem, it's usually because someone feels a lack of love. And how you go about working out these problems, rather than focusing on defending yourself or being involved in your emotions, focus on trying to understand what they are feeling and trying to problem solve. Because when you take this perspective, then you take on a more logical, practical energy rather than an emotional, defensive energy, which is in the end much more productive. You'll actually innovate and find a solution together. And the last life lesson in the self category is that the best habit I have incorporated into my life is journaling. Exhibit A. How you get into journaling really is to just get a journal and a pen that you genuinely like to use. And when I journal, I usually just write in a stream of consciousness. There's a couple other practices and techniques I also like to use, but brain dumping everything on my head is how I journal 95% of the time. I'll even write down, or I don't know what to write right now when my brain is just blank. Journaling is where I get all my epiphanies, all my breakthroughs through struggles I'm going through in life, all my new business ideas, because it forces you to slow down and conceptualize everything that you're thinking, and that gives you enough time to connect the dots. And it's also very important to physically write when you're journaling rather than typing it up, because when you write, it forces you to slow down. Unless you're a very slow typer, then that works too. But then you're kind of too focused on finding the keys than you are on your thoughts. So that is everything I have in the self category. Now let's move on to the career category. For those of you who are new here, I am within the first year of my first full-time job out of college. So I graduated in May of 2019 from the University of Michigan, and I majored in mechanical engineering. So now I'm working at Microsoft as a hardware manufacturing engineer. My career advice is definitely geared to people early in their career, and also it is still in development. But here's what I've learned so far and what I would tell my senior self in college. Number one is that what you should focus on is finding a company whose mission statement you believe in and whose values you resonate with. And you can do this by looking up talks on YouTube hosted by the CEO, stalking their blog, really trying to narrow down what this company's values are and what they're trying to do. In a big corporation, for me, I'm working in cloud technology. It's honestly hard to feel the impact directly on the product because as an engineer, I'm not the one that's physically building the product. People online building the product are probably going to feel more purpose with building and creating this server that empowers cloud technology. But for someone as an engineer, what I focus on, where I find purpose, is serving the people within my company. I help to design and facilitate the manufacturing of this server so that we are able to meet the demands to make the people I work for in the supply chain happy, to make this hardware easier to service for people working in the data center who need to open up the server and service specific components. In a big corporation, I feel like your focus is more on impacting the people within your office. So trying to find a company where you are very in touch with its day-to-day responsibilities or its end product feels like there's a bit of a gap from what I end up finding is important at a company that I'm working with. I do want to put a disclaimer that I'm speaking from my personal experience and my experience working at a big corporate company. It might be different working at a small business or a startup where you are much closer to the product at hand. Another life lesson I've learned early in my career is to not freak out over the fear of becoming average. I think when I first moved out of college and I started my full-time job, I started being scared that I would become average because in college I worked really hard, I excelled, I wanted to do extraordinary things. I got to this big corporate company where I was one of a ton of people, and not only that, I was one of the least knowledgeable people in my office, being someone who's at their first job with no previous industry experience or any experience working at a corporate company full-time. I honestly spent the first year trying to learn about how the office works more than I actually learned about the technical knowledge behind the servers, which this was something I went in with the wrong expectations because I expected to come out of here knowing the ins and outs of how servers work. I thought that if there was ever a zombie apocalypse and my squad and I, came across a data center, it'd be me who'd be like, oh, I know how these servers work. Let me just revamp it, fix it, and we can dig up some highly important information that will save us all, or something like that. My expectations were a little bit out there, and when those expectations weren't met, I think I was feeling lost on my purpose, my motivation. I started to feel like there was no purpose in going left or right in this big career world. So I think going in with the expectation that you are going to be learning about the office within the first year, because it is your first full-time job ever, is an important expectation to have. Building on that, I think it's good to have the mindset of viewing your first couple of jobs out of college as another graduate school. But luckily, it's paid. That puts you in the right mindset of learning and fully experiencing that job. From older mentors I've talked to and people in my office, none of them were completely obsessed with their first job. A lot of them actually very much hated their first job, but it helped them realize what they wanted further down the line. It's like choosing your major in college. you go in, you try a bunch of different things, and kind of by process of elimination, you figure out what you want to do. I think we should all go in with the same expectations for jobs after college, that you are just exploring the field, and that this is a learning process for the next couple of years, figuring out what industry and what kind of job you want to be in. We are on life lesson number 17, which is to think of your manager as a career coach and not so much as an authoritative boss. Because I think this helps you go in and talking to your manager being more true to what you want to say. Because I know in the beginning, when my manager would ask me, how is your workload? And even when I had too much work, I didn't want to admit to it because I wanted to show I was capable, since I viewed my manager more of a authoritative boss. But when I started viewing my manager as more of a coach, a career coach, I was able to ask for advice more, be more open, and feel more comfortable. And I think that's what managers are there for as well. Of course, a little bit of a disclaimer that I have a very understanding manager, and I think this is not the case for everyone, which can be tough. Life lesson number 18 is that honestly, working at Microsoft has made me a better person and taught me a lot of values. They really value diversity and inclusion and designing things with an inclusive mindset, which is something I never really thought about too much, which I kind of hate to admit. But for example, they make game controllers for people with amputated arms or born with shorter arms. And this is something that didn't cross my mind too much, trying to make everything very inclusive. So for example, when I was talking about meditation, this one practice I use, which is called 5 sense noting, where you tune into all 5 senses, I should be aware that some people don't have certain sense working and maybe have another sense that is 10 times stronger. So it's good to design things with an inclusive mindset. Of course, there's a thing where you design for your customer, but also people with disabilities in this world. The problem is not with them, the problem is with the design of how this world operates. So if you're able to design with a more inclusive mindset, we're able to include people to our society that are generally marginalized. Another thing I've learned from Microsoft is the importance of allyship. They will preach this all day long, and this is why I also talk about how it's important to want to work for a company who you really believe in, because their values really do reflect in the people at the company, and then you're surrounded by these people and it really becomes who you are as well. So Microsoft really values allyship, and allyship is the idea that people outside of these minority groups should also be educated and help the movement. And for the people that are in the minority groups, they should also be inclusive of people who are outside the minority groups on educating, providing resources for them as well, because change does not happen unless everyone's involved. For example, I really like to apply this into feminism, because while woman-to-woman support is important, that is a short-term fix, and long-term fix is changing the design of society and how that negatively affects women. That is all the advice I have for the career section, so now moving on to health. Life lesson number 20 is really a message to people who grew up being athletes, really involved in sports. I was a competitive swimmer since I was 5, and then joined the triathlon team when I was in college. And I think I had a lot of hardship in disassociating with the identity of being an athlete, which is something that is not talked about that much. But after I stopped doing sports, my body changed, and I still held a lot of pride surrounded being an athlete, being really fit. I really just put a lot of pressure on myself and expectations on myself to work out a lot, to maintain that level of fitness when my life had really changed. So for all the athletes out there who might be ex-athletes soon, being an athlete doesn't have to be part of you forever. You can still be active, still be very healthy, still be very fit, and work out less. I went from working out almost 4 hours a day from competitive swimming to now I work out 1 hour a day the most on some days. And it took me a while to be okay with that. Life lesson number 21 is that life is too short to worry about your body image. If you need to lose weight for health reasons, do it. That's for your health. But if you are healthy, if you are just fine, life is too short to waste your happiness away worrying about your body image. Here's the thing. Beauty standards are really just a set of expectations set on society that gets absorbed by individuals. So if you look in the mirror expecting to see a small waist, expecting to see a six-pack, and you don't see it, you're naturally going to be disappointed. So number 1, in the bigger picture, we need to remove beauty standards because it's not helping anyone. And number 2, how you tackle this yourself is to remove those expectations yourself. That's why I like to think of myself more of a cartoon, because when I visualize myself as a cartoon, which as weird as it might sound, I am more focused on the energy, the emotion, the action behind every picture I see of myself. I'm more focused on what I'm doing than how I look doing it. Now onto social media. I think social media has become a big part of our modern day lives, and I think social media is a great tool. But I think people need to learn how to use social media as opposed to just being on social media. When you use social media, such as commenting, liking, engaging with posts, putting your voice out there, putting content out there that you believe in, then you are using social media for what it's made for, which is to connect people across oceans and help share information. But if you're just scrolling, comparing yourself against every image, and spending too much time on social media, then you are just on social media. But when you're engaging, you'll find that you can't even spend that much time on social media when you're constantly engaging because you'll get tired of it. Building on that on social media, I think we talk about the digital world and the real world, and by doing so, it implies that these two worlds are separate, when in reality, we only live one life, and all the digital tools we have are here to help enhance that one life. With this mentality, I had to go into my social media and completely revamp who I was following. I realized my social media feed was not reflective of my outside world at all. It was not diverse by race, religion, gender, and it didn't have the different perspectives I see out in the real world. So my piece of advice is to follow people on social media that you genuinely want to be surrounded with in real life. There's that idea that you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and I think that should apply to the people you see on social media as well. And another life lesson I've learned is to eat healthier does not mean eating less. It means eating more vegetables and healthy foods. This is a better mentality to have and doesn't ruin your relationship with food in the process of eating healthier. I've honestly lost track of how many life lessons I've said so far, but I have a few more to add. Another one is to improve your body confidence is to sleep naked. This is something I've only started implementing recently, and the first couple of times I did it felt so uncomfortable and so weird, and I thought I was someone with a lot of body confidence, but this made me realize that my body confidence was not as strong as I thought. So sleeping naked really helps you stay in tune with your body, and it's something I learned from the book The 4 Seasons Solution, which is honestly one of the best books I've read up until this point because it talks about how to be in tune with your body, in tune with the seasons, just doing everything naturally. And going back to the natural roots, it has been the base of happiness in my experience. And finally, I think the general advice for staying active is to always do workouts that you genuinely enjoy. And how you find workouts you genuinely enjoy is to identify how you aim to feel during a workout. So for example, for me, when I work out, I want to feel like a flying bird, a dolphin, or a ninja. So as a result, I really enjoy cycling. Like when I get low on my handlebars and I'm going at full speed, I feel like a bird flying through the air. I also love doing high intensity interval training, lots of jumps, lots of body weight things, because that's when I feel the most like a ninja. Feeling like a dolphin is just me enjoying being in the water. I recently learned how to surf and I absolutely love it and cannot wait to get back out in the water when I'm back on the West Coast. And growing up a swimmer, I just feel very comfortable in the water. It's where I feel at peace. As long as I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. being forced to jump in a cold pool to train for the next race coming up. But yeah, those are all the life lessons I have for you all today. I hope they were helpful. Definitely give this video a like if you enjoyed it because that helps promote my channel in the YouTube algorithm. And leave a comment below any life lessons you learned, any of these resonate with you. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you want more. I'm gonna go enjoy the rest of my birthday, and thank you again so much for watching. Bye!
Young age, trying to make it big. Now that I'm up, they all on my dick. No contractors, never thrown a brick. Just trying to keep it cool like it's ice on my wrist. God-given talent, been feeling blessed. Kept it 100 like an Asian math test. Ballin' all day, I